Welcome back to ReadingBear. Today, we will take a look at some new IDoWorkHereLady stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, I'm a legit crisis worker and I need to use your phone. It's not exactly that I do work here, but that I do legit have business doing this work here. This is long ago and far away, in the late 1970s, when beepers were a thing but cell phones were not, and long before police needed defunding. I was a bit of a duck-up in high school. Not nearly as much as the school thought I was, but, well, I was. But I graduated, and I went to college, and I consolidated my feces to a large degree. I came back home and got a job doing counseling and crisis management for a county-wide youth agency. This agency was, among other things, the go-to agency when a police department got contact with a juvenile for something other than a real crime committed by the kid. Runaways, throwaways, family uproar, some limited drug crisis intervention, and so on. Cops get called, didn't want to deal with that poop, and they'd call us. And after hours or weekends, they'd call the answering service and they would beep us and we'd call back. So I'm the on-call guy one evening, and my little sister was in a play at the high school from which I had graduated with dishonors 5 years earlier. My girlfriend and I went to see my sister's play, and during the show my beeper went off. I got up and went to find a phone, and went into the guidance office, makes sense, right, to see if they could help me. I showed the person in the office my beeper and my agency ID, and so let me use the desk phone. Peachy. I call the answering service to get the word, but just as I connect, the main office door opened and the vice principal, who always loved me so much, walked in. He looked at me, and I looked at him, and he demanded I tell him what the hell I thought I was doing, would not allow me to explain my job and my role, would not look at my agency ID, and basically, emphatically, ordered me to get the hell out of his damn guidance office. So I had to leave the school, leave the play, leave my girlfriend at the play, and go 2 or 3 miles down the road to my town's police department. They graciously let me in the back to use the phone to call the service, then call the other town's police department, and deal with the situation. I don't even remember what the situation was, but it just needed a couple of phone calls to resolve. I didn't have to go to the other police station or anything like that. I got back to the play during intermission. Ducking school. No wonder everybody hated it. The next one is titled, I know only teachers park here, since I am one. Many moons ago, I was a first-year teacher. I taught dance, which is rather specialized, so I taught at one high school in the morning and a different high school in the afternoon. I also wore very casual exercise clothes because of the nature of my job. I was 24 years old, but I always looked much younger, particularly since I was very thin and short. One day, I packed up my gear, and I was heading to my car to go to my second school. Another teacher who I did not know ran out and blocked me. What are you doing out here? Get back to class right now. Kinda startled, I just stated that I was heading to my car. No, you are not. Only teachers can park here. She pointed and looked so smug. I dug in my bag, and pulled out my school ID. I know, was all I said as I showed her the card. Never seen anyone run away from me so fast. The next one is titled, When You're Told You Aren't the Security Guard by Someone Claiming They Are Instead. Cast, me, Og for the other guard, Dave the mall general manager, and PO for police officer. So, I'm a mall guard. I'm the one who bans you when you get caught shoplifting and tells you that, no, you can't ride mountain bikes in the mall. Yes, this happened, and that's a whole other bizarre story, if anyone is interested. I actually have a lot of stories, both scary, funny, and WTF. This happened about a week ago. I was pulling a 17-hour shift that included the overnight. The mall is guarded 24/7. About 11 p.m. I was doing a patrol around the inside of the building. We had some workmen doing maintenance work and in one of the food court restaurants, and I had to keep an eye on them as well as my usual rounds. Walking into the food court, I was waved over by the night janitor. There were 2 cops with him. The only way in at that point was through a back entrance we had left open for the workmen. We've had some ongoing issues with the local department, and I was somewhat annoyed to see them just coming in again without trying to contact security first, but whatever. PO asked me about a silver truck with a light on the top, like a security truck, driving around the property. They knew it wasn't one of our security trucks, which are white. They also have large decals on the side that are hard to miss. I had no clue what they were talking about. I hadn't been outside in the last hour, so as soon as they left I immediately double-checked that the mall was secure. It's an important part of my job to make sure no unauthorized vehicles or individuals are in the mall parking lot overnight, so after that I headed out. I found the truck quickly. I'd have called it dark gray rather than silver, but whatever. When I got up to the truck, there was a company name I'd never heard of, the name underneath that I assumed was the name of the guard himself, and a phone number. I won't give any more details than that for obvious reasons. However, the security company was one I had never heard of and was in no way associated with the mall. I asked him if I could help him, and the other guard, Og, just lobbed the exact same question back at me. I informed him that I was mall security, that he was on private property and I needed him to leave. Og told me that he, in fact, was security. Which was a bit confusing to say the least. I again identified myself as mall security and informed the man that if he didn't leave the premises I would call the police. Og responded insisting that he was going to call the police and have me removed from the property for trespassing. At no time did he identify himself or give any reason for his presence on the property beyond insisting that he was security. He was extremely annoyed by my questioning and became increasingly combative and aggressive in his tone. He did not, however, at any time exit his vehicle, and I kept well back for obvious reasons. I'll pause here to say that I am female and on the short side. People generally judge me as being in my late 20s, although I'm a good bit older. This guy was a large man who I put in his late 30s or early 40s. So, while he didn't exactly say run along little girl and leave security to men, it was heavily implied by his tone and attitude. Ladies, you know what I'm talking about. So, I called the police. It was about midnight at this point, but procedure is procedure. As soon as I got off the phone with dispatch, I had to call first my direct boss and then the general manager to inform them of the situation. Neither of them knew why some guy from another security company would be there. The GM, who we'll call Dave for the purposes of this narrative, said he wanted the guy off the property. Og shouted something I couldn't understand at me while I was on the phone with Dave, though the tone was aggressive. Dave could hear him yelling over the phone and said to stay well back. I agreed entirely. By the time I got off the phone, Og had rolled his window up again and appeared to be on the phone himself. PO called me at this point. He asked if this was about the truck they had told me about. When I confirmed this, he told me that they had, and I quote, caught up to the driver and that he had claimed to be private security hired by one of our anchor stores to watch it overnight. I called the Dave with the information and also texted him the number on the truck. Calling the company, Dave was told that the store had indeed hired private security, without getting permission or even bothering to inform us. Before I go farther, yes, the store in question rents their individual space. If they had hired a guard to be within that space, I would have nothing to say to it, and neither would the mall. This isn't the case. In fact, the guard they hired isn't allowed inside their store. He was hired to watch it from outside, on property that is the mall's, not the store's. Individual stores are not permitted to use mall property beyond their rented space without prior authorization. It's in their contracts. After speaking to the company, Dave called me back. He said that the whole thing would need to be sorted out in the morning, but for that night the guard could stay. However, it was on sufferance and he was to remain in his vehicle at all times and to stay only in the parking lot directly by the store. Not driving around the whole mall parking lot like the cops had seen him doing. I attempted to relay these instructions to the Og. Although he did briefly roll his window down again, he continued to refuse to listen to anything I said. When I tried to speak to him, he talked right over me very loudly, saying he'd just talked to his boss and everything fine, so I was to again run along. He seemed to like that phrase. I tried to insist that I needed him to listen to me, but he objected, saying that he didn't have to listen to anything I said. When I tried again, he just started talking even louder to drown me out, saying he didn't have to listen to me. Then he rolled up his window again and refused, point blank, to acknowledge my presence. In the end, I had to call PO back and ask them to inform the guy of Dave's instructions. In the morning there was a huge hullabaloo about it. I don't know all the details, but the store manager had a long meeting with Dave. Also, a formal complaint was issued with the company in regards to their guy. A couple days later I was asked by someone higher up in their company to go through exactly what happened with her. Afterwards she apologized profusely and we have been told that the guard in question would be dealt with, whatever that means. We never saw that guard again. I'm writing this on my dinner break and as I type some other guard is currently sitting out the parking lot watching the store. I'll be honest with you, though. I honestly don't think Og ever actually believed that I was security. It was chilly, it being October, so I'd thrown on a hoodie over my uniform. Still, when someone says they are security, involves the mall general manager and the police because you are trespassing, they might just be who they say they are. The next one is titled, Dude is rude and belligerent, gets arrested. So this happened just last week, even so, my memory is kinda bad so this isn't verbatim lol. I'm not sure if this really counts as an IDWHL story or not, but it's the most fitting place I could think of off the top of my head. TLDR at the end, my dad owns and runs several car washes in and near the city I live in, and I regularly help him and my mum out with stuff, mostly with picking up, sweeping trash, dumping garbage, spraying down dirty self-serve bays, etc. I don't know a lot about fixing things, but they're currently learning to fix changes and stuff and plan on teaching me once they get the hang of it. The main thing that I help them with, though, is checking a few locations after I'm done with my regular job. My current job is with a security company, and I work nights until midnight most days, and until 4 AM one day of the week, so it's usually 30 or 40 minutes from the time I get off work, check the car washes, and get home. This particular night though, I stayed I think over an hour and a half. One night after work, I was doing the usual rounds, nothing unusual or suspicious going on. I'm supposed to be extra cautious lately, mostly because over the past few months, car washes in and around our city have been getting broken into. My dad assumes it's because everyone is staying home so they can't rob houses anymore. I get to the last location I check on the way home and do the usual routine, drive through the automatic brush bay to make sure no one is hiding behind, messing with the machine parts. Apparently it happened before and it scared the poop out of my dad. Apparently the guy was just trying to get out of the rain. I can see through the touch-free bay no problem, so no need to go through there, drive past the vacuum islands, and make sure all the timer screens in the self-serve bays are on and not busted in. There's no way to get to any money from the 1 inch by 2 inches screen, but hey, people are dumb. As I drove through the brush bay, I saw a car backed in next to one of the VAC islands, but I didn't hear the vacuum running, and all of the car doors were shut. That was immediately a, albeit small, red flag, along with the fact that there wasn't any license plate. Another car was by one of the other islands, also inside the car, but with the car running and headlights on. I kept going and checked the screens, and all was good there. I decided to go and park up by the office, and from there I could see the running car from my side view mirror, but shortly after, they sat in the self-serve bay for a minute or so before leaving. I can access the cameras from my phone, so I pulled up the single screen view to watch the first car, and after a minute or two of no activity, I called my dad to let him know what was going on. He told me to go back to the vacuums and talk to the guy. I did so, backing into the space next to him on the opposite side of the island and put it back into drive, something my dad's told me to do in case I need to book it. The guy was in the front seat, but twisted around halfway to rummage around in the back. I put my window down and did a quiet honk, the kind to try and get someone's attention, but he didn't turn around even after a couple more times. I waited for a bit, and he finally turned around. I always try to be polite and give the benefit of the doubt, so I gave a small smile, waved, and motioned for him to roll down his window. He shouted, "What?" with his window still up, so I motioned again. He scoffed at me and shook his head. During this, I was giving my dad a play-by-play to let him know what was happening, as well as trying to keep him from falling back asleep. Eventually he rolled down his window. Me, "Hello. I noticed that you've been sitting here for a while, so I was just wondering if everything was alright." Him, through the entire convo he has an attitude and is passive-aggressive, leaning more and more towards straight-up aggressive. "I'm fine, what the duck do you want?" My dad, on speaker, but my phone isn't loud enough for the guy to hear him, ask him if he's gonna vacuum me. Do you plan on vacuuming tonight? Or are you more just decluttering?" Him, sarcastically, "Yeah, I'm at a car wash by the ducking vacuums cause I'm not gonna vacuum." "It ain't your business." Me, still trying to be polite, "Okay, I'm just trying to." My dad, "Tell him he needs to vacuum or leave, he's dealt with enough poop that he just gets straight to it." I, unfortunately, am not as confident as him, especially when it's dark out, I'm by myself, and all I have to defend myself is pepper spray. By this point, the guy had already put his window back up and got out to move stuff in the back seat. I could now see another person in the passenger's seat, presumably his girlfriend. She was trying to say something, but I couldn't make out what she was saying between the window and my dad talking to me. I don't remember what about at this point. The guy kept making comments about how long I'd been hanging around for, and by this point I was extremely uncomfortable and anxious, and all I could really say to him was something about not wanting to drive and use my phone at the same time. My dad finally told me I can go back to the other side of the building, and from there he told me to call the cops to get a no trespass on both of them. I'm already not a fan of police, but I've had to call them before for a similar, though much less anxiety-provoking situation, and there's no way my dad would let me not call them down there. There's not much dialogue from this point on, and I couldn't see what exactly was happening since I was trying to stay out of the way once the cops got there, but after a while they put the guy in the back of one of the cars. An officer came over to tell me that they had a warrant for his arrest. The guy's car got towed, and shortly before I left, a police van arrived. I was super anxious throughout the whole ordeal, but it did feel kind of nice knowing that, because he wouldn't just be polite, it led to him getting arrested. The next one is titled, I'm stealing and trespassing from a shop that I work at. I looked relatively younger than I was. I looked about 13 to 14 and I helped a lot with it. I took a snack and some Pepsi near the beginning of work, then have a lunch break at a pizza place near. There were a few customers and 2 of them were regulars. Bear in mind it wasn't a small space, but it wasn't massive either. I'm doing some packages and also helping someone with a post-related question. After I finished I went to get a Pepsi because Pepsi. Then a cranky Karen yelled at me. The door to the front counter is right near the entrance. Though I was stealing, I understood. If you saw a kid stealing stuff you'd try and stop it as well, right? Interaction goes like this: me Karen, hey stop right there. Karen slow walks. Karen, stop, I know you're trying to steal that, put it back or I will call that. Me, oh ma'am, I work here, I'm not stealing. I you. Karen, I don't care, how dare you cut me off. Me, sorry but again I'm not stealing, I work here and was just getting something to drink. Karen, stop lying to me, you stealing prick, you don't even work here. Me, ma'am please stop shouting, I will tell you a third time I am not stealing. Asterisk sees she has 2 packages in her hand. Asterisk, and I do work here, would you like me to help you with your packages? Gets behind the counter. At this moment the other 2 employees working were in the basement hauling up stock for drinks, snacks and pre-packed boxes, so I was here by myself with no one in the store except me and her. Karen, I don't want a little kid telling me what to do, I will call the AUTHORITYS on you. Karen, and you are TREASSPASSING leave OR, I will call the police. YOURE, way too young to help with anything. Still screaming. Karen, IAMFRIENS with the owner and I will get you banned from this store and get you arrested. Now the other workers came back up and asked what is happening because of the screaming and the audacity of this, which she says that I shouted at her and called her disabled, autistic, fat, ugly, and that I slapped her. These workers were like my family, we all cared for each other and they know I would never do that, so they checked the CCTV with sound and found out I didn't do that, and they told her to leave the store. She complained for like 10 minutes. We said that if she didn't leave we would call authorities. One glare, then boom, she went. Funny thing, my dad, owner, came literally 3 minutes after she was gone. The next one is titled, Yes, I do work here at Wally World. This just happened to me about a few minutes ago at my local Wally World. So I got off my shift about an hour ago and, due to the pandemic, my store closes at 10 p.m. every night. At my Wally World, I am not sure if it's different at different stores, employees are able to grocery shop while the store is closed. Anyways, as I got off my shift, I realized that I had to pick up some groceries myself, although I wanted to take a step outside to take off my mask that I have had on all night. So I stepped outside, and since the parking lot is basically empty at night except for employee vehicles, I went and moved my truck closer to the door. I went back in, grabbed a cart, and made my way towards the medicine aisle. I had to pick up some chapstick for my mother, so I went to the medicine aisle to find it. There was an elderly woman, about mid-60s, stalking around where the chapstick would be. So as I'm looking for the chapstick on the wall, the elderly lady asks in a somewhat aggressive tone if she could help me find anything. I let her know, and she led me to an area near the pharmacy line where they were. Awesome. I went to get a few other things across the store and returned near that area as I also had to pick up some lotion. I went back to her and asked her if I would be able to get something from the beauty area if I asked the assistant manager. That is when I was asked if I worked there. I told her I did, but I worked for the previous shift. She guided me to where the lotion was, and sadly, there was none. Drats. Oh well. I went to the self-checkout lanes that are logged in for employees to use. I rang up my stuff paid, and planned to go to the restroom before I left the store. Unfortunately, the front-end restrooms are out of order, so I have to go to the back of the store. I see an associate at the customer service area and ask if I could leave my cart with groceries there while I went to the restroom. He said all right, so I went, did my business and returned to my cart. As I'm leaving, however, I notice the same elderly lady with another associate, I would probably assume the shift manager. He walks towards me and I kindly greet him. He greets back and immediately asks if I work here. I tell him I did, and if he would like proof, I would kindly go to the back and get my vest and name tag from my locker. Seemingly appeased with that answer, he checked my receipt and let me go on my merry way. I am still grinning ear to ear as I type this because I never thought it would happen to me. The next one is titled, Not Who You Expected to See at the Front of the Class. I'm one of those people who can't sit still and I have a couple of jobs. I started off in the emergency services but drifted into IT. Once in IT I did a part-time degree in computing and then got a second job teaching part-time at the university where I got my bachelor's. I went on to get a master's in education alongside my teaching. I now work part-time for my IT employer and work teaching a few online and face-to-face courses at the university. The university also offers short courses in some technology topics which I also teach as I have instructor certifications from the various vendors. This sort of sets the scene. Last year, the company I work for was taken over and we had a new management team arrive. Most of the team are okay and will ask about things they're unsure of apart from one who has a really inflated opinion of himself. We haven't really had much to do with each other, but he has seen me in meetings and I've had some negative feedback on the project work I've done which can be classed as someone flexing their muscles. You know, I suppose this does works, but I would have done X, Y or Z instead. I discovered he was not really interested in those lower down the food chain, so he didn't do a great deal of due diligence on who he was working with. A month or so back, we were on a conference call and I don't have my video turned on for Teams meetings, just an avatar. In the middle of the meeting it was announced that there would be training on some of the new hardware we were deploying and that the sessions would be run by the university I teach at. I already knew all about this and had prepared a little overview of what would be taught. Before I got chance to comment, our manager chipped in, "I can't see the point of this. What can they teach us at a university? We have tech guys here doing the work, those who can do, those who can't teach." Not the wisest comment. Roll forward a couple of weeks and I'm standing at the front of my classroom at the university with the faculty dean. My PowerPoint slides are ready to go and the class starts arriving. In walks the manager and he immediately recognizes me and starts to walk over asking why I was there as I wasn't booked on this course. The dean asks him to take a seat as the class will begin shortly. The manager looks a little puzzled but takes a seat. One or two others from the day job walk in and there are a few amused looks passed between them. They have figured out something the manager hasn't. The clock hits the top of the hour and the course officially starts. The dean turns to the class and starts his introduction. "Hello and welcome to the course. I'm the faculty dean and I would like to say hi and introduce you to Op, who is your tutor for this course." The look on the face of the manager made my day. I'm taking great pleasure in pointing out all the places he has gone wrong in his assignments, usually along the lines of, yes, this approach would work, but it is much more efficient to do X, Y or Z, especially as that is the accepted best practice for this technology.